16th regular meeting of the Montpelier DRB to order. And I'm going to introduce board members starting on my right.
Burgess, member, vice chair.
Kevin O'Connell, member.
Meredith Crandall, staff.
Rob Goodwin, the chair.
Alex Fox, member. Olivia Dana, member.
Joe Kiernan, member.
Everyone's in person. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 voting members present this evening. Wonderful. Yep.
Wow.
We just got redoubled.
That's because I can't.
Good.
Yeah. And there's also a little echo happening, but
You only get to vote once.
Might be.
It might be my fault, right?
Yeah, if you have your speakers on
Yeah, so I.
and you're muted, but yeah, if it's just your speakers. Yeah, so just turn off the
Okay.
speakers.
There we go.
You'll be good.
All righty, Meredith, you want to do our remote meeting procedures spiel?
Yes. And I will do a shortened version because the only people we have online for the meeting, the only person we have is Corey Line from Department of Public Works. So I will do this quick. Oh. Okay. So for anyone viewing tonight's Development Review Board meeting via ORCA Media, you can participate in the discussion through either video or telephone access options. For the full video experience, you can type this link into your web browser. Alternatively, you can dial into the meeting from any telephone using this number, and when prompted, put in the meeting ID and passcode. I will be monitoring my email throughout the meeting if you have any problems. Please note that for those attending via Zoom, turning your video on is optional. For everyone attending via Zoom, please keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. This reduces background noise. And note that the Zoom chat function should only be used for troubleshooting or logistics questions. Questions or comments about items on the agenda need to be made verbally. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, it will need to be continued to a time and place certain because we do have a public hearing as part of the agenda. I will now hand the meeting back over to the chair.
Alrighty, thank you, Meredith. We have I will motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
Motion by Kevin, second by Catherine. All those in favor for approval of the agenda, say aye.
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 Wonderful. We have an agenda. Okay. The first item on the agenda will be comments from the chair. And keep it brief. I don't have anything. Thank you all for being here tonight. We'll get this show on the road. Mike, welcome to come on up to the hot seat. So we have one application tonight. This is 114 River Street. And the city of Montpelier, Mike Miller's here to represent, which is not the owner of the property. So Mike, can you just briefly just talk about the relationship between the city and the owner in this case?
All right. Mike Miller, planning director for the city. So 114 River Street, most of you know this probably as the House of Tang building. So its owners, Nam Chun and Brenda. What?
Yeah, so I was just getting to the point, just introducing yourself to the relationship to the city, to the owner, but we got to swear you in.
Oh, okay.
So I'm guessing the city has like an easement or something like that to do this work on their property, or like what?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Did you want to go through swearing me in?
Yeah,
And
I'll do
I
that.
was just going to explain the subtle difference between why we're doing, why we are the applicant and
And
They are the
Corey
property
Line
owner.
might talk too. He's on remotely. So
Yep.
Corey, if you want to, can you do your camera? Just so that we can see you raising your hand. And we'll need an eye when you get sworn in case you say something.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alrighty. All those, hold on a second.
We didn't change the wording.
We did not change the wording.
No,
It's
we
in a
didn't-
different
it's-
spot.
it's a different spot in the rules, but we didn't change.
All
the
those
wording.
wishing to provide testimony tonight, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. You solemnly swear or affirm, don't repeat after me, sorry. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is, this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Ready?
Thank you both. All right. I think we can skip your little start here, Meredith, because we have a qualified planning individual here presenting. So, Mike, go ahead. Sorry to
All right,
interrupt you.
sorry. The brief summary of this property and so the owners, they own the property. Nam and Brenda own the property. They are but after the flood in July 23, there was a substantial amount of bank erosion behind their property, enough so that it was undermining the building, the actual building itself that was at the back of the property. A number of feet of material was lost in that flood. And so the city, on behalf of the owners of the property, we applied for federal funding to go through and do some bank stabilization. A lot of that, the issue there is the railroad trestle kind of directs the water at their property. So we worked to try to get some funding to help them out to restabilize that bank. And so that is why, and we received EWP, and I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but it's some USDA funding that we are going to be going in using to help stabilize this bank. And so that's why we are the applicant. It's rare for the city to be kind of the applicant in these, but in this case, that's why we are the applicant and the owners of the property. Obviously, they're the owners, but I'm here to represent the project itself. I don't know if you want me to summarize basically what the project is, but it's to remove about 80 feet of the vegetation. So that way the riprap can get installed along that shoreline. It's coming before you now because to remove the vegetation along in the riparian buffer, as Meredith will probably go through some of the legal details of the zoning, we can't remove the vegetated buffer without your permission. So if we're going to reinforce this bank and put it back to where it belongs, then we have to remove the trees first and kind of go from there.
Oh, so first question. So if maintenance needs to be done on this in the future, is there like a long-term agreement to allow the city to go in and, fix anything or?
I actually believe the long-term maintenance will be passed on to the property owners. We are going to be doing this on their behalf to put it in. Once it's installed, it is theirs to maintain and take care of into the future.
So I have a question of what's the long-term liability that that the city may experience? Like, I'm just wondering what was how many other properties are in a similar situation? And is it unique for the city to be stepping in this role?
As far as I know, and Corey's welcome to correct me, there were only two properties that were looking to get this particular assistance. There's a special program that does this. In the end, the other one is the Kia dealership right at the property line on Route 2. There's a bridge as you go over, there's the Kia dealership.
Oh, right.
That all got scoured out. They were going to take the funding, and then at the end of the day, they just said, we're going to fix it ourselves, and they put it back in. So this was the only property that we are doing with this funding and in this type of arrangement. And that's and I don't believe we would end up having any liability. This will all go into the contracts and everything else with the memorandums of understanding that we're doing this on their behalf to help them out.
Yeah, and it's really not our role to be evaluating contracts and things of that nature,
Yes, correct.
but just for context.
Yeah.
I guess I had a similar question. If conditions were applied, would it fall under this funding bucket to, for example, the revegetation condition? Would that fall under the current funding bucket, or would that fall separately upon the owners after the installation of riprap? I guess when it's connected to the roles and responsibilities when the city's applying on behalf of the owners, but some of the conditions might extend beyond the initial role of the city, I guess.
Yep. So it's a good question. So just big pictures, as you think about these things, Permits run with the land. So therefore, even though the city is the applicant and we have the property owners, as soon as we help them get that, that condition would run with the land, whether NAM owns the property or not, and whether we're there or not. If you made a condition that said you have to revegetate this, and then the city leaves, that would then fall to the property owner to maintain it, and that would be up to Meredith to enforce it if that fails to be maintained.
There is a revegetation provision in.
Yep, and so depending on how you guys want to go about it, I'm happy to talk about certain parts in the staff report. Or if you want to start from the beginning and work your way through how you want to go about it. I wasn't quite sure.
Well,
But yeah,
I
there
have
is
a
a,
question that's not in my memory of having read through the staff report. And that is whether there were pre-existing conditions before the 23 flood. But that's again a contextual question. Do you know?
It was hard to tell. We were looking for some things definitive, looking for some pictures. We looked at aerial photos because we did have that question of how much bank was lost during the flood. And certainly the property owners who were there, who are there, they have owned the building for 30 or more years. And, you know, they could show where the line on the back of the foundation was dirt. And now you can look under the foundation. And so now, you know, at least that much dirt has eroded on its way back. And they used to be able to walk around the building on the land, and now they can't walk around the building. Now, at what point over those 30 years did that reach that point? I think it's probably been encroaching over time. And there probably was just a large removal of materials. There certainly are a lot of trees. If you see the pictures, there are a lot of trees and you just see the roots there. Clearly, those roots wouldn't have been there for a long period of time. They probably would have broken up by now.
All right. Well, I think got a little preview, maybe what direction the board wants to focus on this. So Meredith, if you want to sort of talk about the revegetation and any key points you feel like we shouldn't miss tonight.
yeah. So, you know, as has been summarized, really the only reason this is here before the board is because we're talking about the riparian buffer and the need to remove some trees and shrubs, but the natural woody vegetation in that riparian buffer, that first half of the water setback. As you can see from the photos, a lot of the place where the actual riprap is gonna go, it, you know, is either fairly bare, it's just tree roots. They're gonna, you know, have to put in some fill behind the riprap in places, but they also have to clear trees and shrubs at the top of the bank just to get the equipment there to be able to lay stuff in. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, some of these trees are big trees, but they also need to do that to be able to then really carefully put that riprap down, and not have the trees and the shrubs and all that stuff in the way, pushing on it and keeping it from laying nice and smooth the way it needs to. Well, smoother than tree roots would allow it. So that's why it's before you. So that's all in the section 3005, and because it's not sort of our traditional, get to the waterfront thing that we've seen at before for riparian buffer. It falls under this first situation where you can't reasonably do this work without removing those trees and shrubs. So that first option for a riparian buffer waiver. This then implicates the landscaping, and that's the only place where trying to replant some of that space really comes in with actual trees, because under the standard riparian buffer area, you could just let it revegetate. Just say, hey, you can't put impervious surfaces here. You got to let it revegetate. And that would be the only condition that would have to go in there. Under administrative review, site plan review, the landscaping comes in, and because they're removing so many trees, in that riparian buffer area, it is going to step into cutting down enough trees and shrubs that they're probably not in compliance with the total site landscaping requirement anymore. That naturally just revegetated area in the rear is how we've been able to do changes of use and other things and say, oh, you don't need to plant anything new because you've got all this natural woody growth in the back. So I have, just stuck a number in there or a range. That doesn't mean that the board has to stick with that number. That would be the kind of thing I would do as a zoning administrator if I were to approve this without the riparian buffer issue, right? Because I have to stick exactly with the rules. The board is supposed to as well, but they have some discretion on how to do that a little bit more than I do. And what they have
Is
to
there
be
any-
planted.
ecological or river health reason that the trees need to be planted at the back in the same place? I mean, if it's just, or could they be put in the side, or, I mean, is it?
So the parcel, it's going to be the easiest place to plant more stuff. Most of the parcel is impervious surface. So I went the simplest route, right? You do want to keep shade over the river. That's not something that's in here. This is just out of my head and out of my learning, as managing the river hazard area regulations and everything else. So
Yes.
so there is a reason to have woody growth back there. Unfortunately, we gave the Conservation Commission this application. They met last week. I have heard nothing from them. I don't have written comments from them. And I actually forgot today to check for their minutes. So I don't have their input. If need be, I can go find the minutes and everybody's here in person so I could print them out. And you guys could review them if you wanted to. But I was going with easiest situation because if you start talking about removing parking lot around everything, then we have to go into evaluation of parking. Are we leaving them enough parking? Like all sorts of other layers. The easiest thing is to just replant that area. Whether it's letting the vegetation come back on its own, other options.
So it would be possible to make a condition of immediate replanting.
You could,
Because it is an area that would grow up very quickly.
I think it would
So-
grow up very quickly, whether or not it would be enough to meet the total site landscaping. I think it would, because you can count sort of natural woody areas on a 2-to-1 basis for the square footage requirement. You could also, we did hear from, I heard from Alec Ellsworth, so he's the parks director, that there are trees available in the city nursery that could be used to do some of the replanting. So the board has some discretion on how they want to throw that in there and go with that route.
The goal is to save the building.
Well, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, it's the building. I think I included the photos in the
Yeah.
packet, where they'd have to tear off the rear of the building.
Right.
And
That's pretty clear.
the way the water comes in here is really a function of that train trestle. My understanding is it wouldn't create as much of a current to wash out under that building without that man-made structure. And we can't do anything about the trains. We don't touch the trains, so we don't touch the railroad.
Except for every law since the beginning of this country. I guess Steve or Corey, could you just talk about your plan for reclamation vegetation as it stands now? If there is one.
I don't know in their designs, I don't believe in their designs, they have placed in revegetation.
Just
But that-
plantings of like grasses and stuff. There's no
Yeah.
trees or shrubs
Yeah.
in those specifications.
Yeah, they would pre-cover to make sure that the there's no erosion, so you usually go through, get the grass in there, but yeah, I think any tree requirements would probably have to be something at this point that would come from the board that we would then work on. And I don't know how that works from a size. I mean, to try to look at one for one, because I know it looked like Meredith, you calculated a number of square footage or the size of trees. Of course, we're taking out full size trees and we would be replacing them with little, but if we gave them 30 years, they might get to be the
Right,
same
and
size.
that's the calculation is based on ultimate height and growth.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't mean you have to plant that
Not
new large
planting, you're
tree.
not-
You have
yeah,
to plant a species that will ultimately become that
Become that
large
tree.
tree. That's the, if you were to do it, you know, the strictest way, that's what's proposed in here. Because that's what I would probably have to do for an administrative permit.
So we're thinking about the health of the building and the health of the river at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that the health of the river would be improved by shade trees and not just grasses.
That's my
Scientific.
non-expert suggestion. I'm gonna go.
It's
real
why we
quick.
have the riparian buffer in the first place
Yeah.
on all of our streams, is to protect, not only to keep it from eroding, but also to shade
All those
shade the
people that
waterways.
Live between
Yes.
the railroad trestle.
If you want to stay cool in the winter or in the summer, they can get up underneath in the shade from the train trestle.
Fish. My husband caught the limit on opening day right about there 2 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, things falling from the trees too.
Yes.
Just
And we ate them.
So just taking a step back for a second, DRB's role in this, the placing of this fill, reconstructing this bank is really what's happening.
Yep, but that's more the river hazard permit,
So
which is,
we're clearing the trees in order to be able to
Mhm.
place fill.
yep, it's the tree part that is what's in your,
So
I'm
placing a
I'm
fill-
asking you to let me cut down the trees, and then you have the option of telling us to put a certain number of trees back or not to put a certain number of trees back. The rest of the permit will happen administratively through Meredith.
and a lot of that fill part is also not even really river hazard because it's putting it in the river. It's actually state stream alteration permit. So it's a combination of those two. You know, there's some fill that's river hazard, but it's reliant on stream alteration aspect for the state, that's being coordinated separately.
I guess I'm asking the question in my head, in this case, so the placing the fill is not development risk in the DRP, it's the cutting of the trees that is the development, in
That's
this.
coming here.
In its part, but, I almost want to have the DRB ask the question as to whether we feel that, in this particular instance, the clearing of trees under this, like, narrow scope for this reason is actually, development, and, we can make a decision on that.
It's specifically in your applicability of what is development in the zoning regulations.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up. It's explicit. We made sure to have it explicit. So give me a second and I'll pull up the reference.
I was pulling up to, I'd say it's site planning, you know?
we
It's
had,
site-
we had this before in relation to fill and whether you take out fill. That's development too.
It can be depending on the amount. But if you just give me a second. I was. Section 1004, applicability of the zoning regulations, unified development regulations. Point B4, so this is development includes for removal or disturbance of vegetation in the following, and sub A is removal of natural woody vegetation from riparian buffers. So even if there was no fill involved whatsoever, just removing woody vegetation from the riparian buffer anywhere in the city is development. Whether or not it then needs a zoning permit depends on various other exemptions further on in the zoning regulations. And this project doesn't hit any of those exemptions.
And to get to your point, putting in the fill and the riprap also is development,
Mhm.
but does not come to this board because it's administrative. So we will get a permit for putting the riprap in, but
Yeah, I
just-
mean, this,
You can't just bring it to the bridge and dump, dump it over.
they got to get the roots. They got the roots there. They got to get all the roots and trees out of the way.
Right.
Oh. Any other questions thus far, board members? Oh. I mean, to me, I think the key question here is whether we require a condition that requires revegetation or not. And I'm leaning no, and would happily expound on why, but I'd love to hear what others think.
It also seems redundant to me, given the growth patterns of exactly that type of vegetation in that area. It seems to me that it would grow up very quickly. It would be better suited to let it naturally grow up than to try, I mean, from the standpoint of trying to plant trees that will survive in that location, that would be quite challenging, requires a lot of maintenance. So to my mind, ultimately, the natural vegetation is likely to outpace anything that were forcefully revegetated in place, I think. So it seems to me unnecessary. But
I'll make the other case, that it would, if we could help it along, it would be for the good health of the river, and the land. But it would have to be small caliber stuff, that's for sure. So you would only gain, some years on, useful revegetation.
Well, there's some space, downstream from the building. The riprap doesn't come right up to the building. There's plenty of room there to put in,
Big trees.
redwood if you wanted to.
No, then you would disrupt the building for other reasons. No Norway spruce, they have shallow roots that would go right underneath and lift the building.
Yeah. For another thought. I was curious if you're planning on grubbing the slope. Is the slope gonna just be bare rock or is it gonna get covered with grubbings?
I think
Just blend topsoil and slope to prevent ponding over the flat portion of the shoulder break.
I want to say that there's not going to be soil over the riprap stone itself. It'll be revegetated at the top and soil added at the bottom to cover over. So once you dig out and then you put in the riprap and then you'll fill some dirt over the riprap on the bottom.
Within the stream itself.
Yeah. But I think at the end,
page 19 of the packet, it does refer to grubbing, that has a DigSafe logo on it. All areas disturbed by construction shall have topsoil or grubbing material applied and seeded and mulched. And it offers 3 inches of topsoil shall be applied, or 6 inches of grubbing material may be applied in other areas disturbed. I mean,
I can certainly be corrected. That's
no,
That's the
there's,
staff report, that's the
it's
application.
of the old, so I don't know. Yeah,
Saw that logo and that's flipping.
Yeah.
Find it again.
Yeah, that's the Corey, in case you're looking, it's the general construction notes
Okay.
from the USDA document. So it's page 11 of 11 from the EWP project, stream bank protection.
All areas
No
disturbed by
document.
construction.
so I don't know,
That doesn't mean that new slope, that means anything.
This is-
they track.
right.
Yeah, because they're gonna have to come in and work around the edges there.
What's grubbing?
Grubbing is kind of like, think of it as like muck, but there's like organic, twigs and branches and things kind of just mixed in with it, kind of like what you would find on a stream bank.
Well, they
Uh,
define it here, shall consist of grubbed or stripped earth material containing roots of native stream bank vegetation.
Yeah, so it
So
will
it's
naturally,
dirt with stuff in it.
right, organic material, and
Yeah.
the roots in theory, given the right conditions, will resprout. It's just typically what we cover stone slopes with, particularly in stream areas, to promote, riverbank growth. It gives, bare rock is not exactly the best environment for anything to grow. So
Right.
when you introduce, it just speeds things along. It
Right.
would happen naturally
Right.
over a long time, but the only issue there is you get a big flood and it could just all be gone, pretty quickly.
Which is probably beyond our purview, but worth asking. Is there any, would there be any way to require the planting to occur just elsewhere within the riparian buffer watershed, like, like 22 trees are coming down, right? Do you have other priority sites with? Is that something, it's like a transfer of development rights for the trees?
It's like wetland credits.
Yeah.
Carbon tax.
Yeah, just, does I agree, it seems, I agree with the principle of, replanting when trees are coming down, but. Yeah, it's,
So because the zoning regulations are really about
yeah, this.
like the property, what you have in here specifically is that the board may require replacement like of an equal amount of buffer in the water setback area. So that's anywhere that's a bigger area, not just the riparian buffer.
Yeah, but
If
it's
you're
still
losing it,
on the
but it's
site.
still in this, it still has to be on the site. We don't, Montpelier's regulations don't really envision, and I can't think of the word I'm using for it, but being able to do something somewhere on a different site for mitigation. Like there's places for that in state regulations or other options, but so far Montpelier's regulations haven't thrown that in. I can't think of anywhere where we allow
Very
that.
tricky legally.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to be able to
Supreme Court
require
doesn't really like
that.
'em.
Um,
It's
it would,
just an example of where, this is more a regional issue, right?
Mhm.
Versus a site issue. If every site says they don't want to plant them, it's a problematic
Yeah.
area.
I mean, that's great, but it does make it really a lot harder to enforce if you're
Yeah.
trying to put it on a different piece of property.
Yeah, just to me, it's kind of unusual that the city's here versus for a private property owner, that would be harder to.
Is this
orchestrate.
by the grant? Or is there a match?
It's 100% funded by the grant. But we have a fixed grant amount, so we're obviously managing the project to stay under that grant amount. If it goes over, then technically the property owner would be responsible for the overage. But as I said, we're trying to manage everything to stay under the grant amount.
I guess what I would say is that I absolutely think it should be vegetated. I absolutely think it should plant trees, but I don't think the board should require them to do it. And I think that the city has all sorts of programs underway to plant trees, and the NRCS has got other initiatives in the watershed and whatnot. And the landowner, if concerned about the sort of site plan standards to be able to do anything, well, there's nothing stopping them from planting trees to satisfy that concern. It's kind of where I see it.
Okay, just know I would
Yes.
need you all to rule on the landscaping requirements and basically override what I would have to do by myself. And basically take that on. Because administratively, I can't just say, you don't. That they can't meet the landscaping requirement with just, grass. It has to be woody vegetation.
Sure, and I think my concern here is the first flood that comes by and, rips out all the trees that are on the bank. We don't want them to be in violation of their zoning
Yep.
permit because they don't have enough trees.
And all I'm saying is you need to make an explicit finding about that landscaping, total site landscaping standard that you're confident that it revegetating on its own over time is sufficient in
Sure.
this case.
Yep.
To meet the total site landscaping. It's just not you're insisting on it within like a year or two of plantings, that type of thing, that you're giving them longer to have the natural woody growth revegetate to come back to the status quo of how they've been meeting that landscaping standard.
I guess where I'm at with that is that let it revegetate, and, appropriate measures as recommended by the city forester or however we want to put that, are welcome but not required.
So bottom line is no change from the system. I'm a little confused on that.
So we would be effectively granting approval to remove this riparian vegetation, which is the question, like that's what requires the approval in this case, without any condition mandated by DRB to revegetate, but with a recommendation that revegetation plans be followed. Is that, to my mind, that makes sense because I agree on the, yeah, that makes sense to me.
I'll argue the other side of it. I mean, I think standards are there for a reason. I mean, there's a lot of little absurdities here. But if you think it ought to be revegetated, then the reason not to condition it would be an argument for property owners' right not to be commanded by the DRB to do something that's not absolutely necessary. Or something like that. If your standard is the health of the river and the long-term, the potential long-term viability of that riprap bank, I don't know. If you put in a bunch of 3-year-old specimens that, have a good chance of rooting and are appropriate, it doesn't seem like a really hard imposition.
Would grubbing the slope satisfy, because it is woody vegetation, it's not grown yet, but in theory, it would be shrubs and natural spring bank woody vegetation that grows back, and it kind of expands our area that we can revegetate if we grub the slope.
Yeah, I think that is definitely within the board's discretion to say that is how this is being met, right? And
Okay.
you're setting that standard, right? It's not language that is in the regulations. So I would not have the discretion to make that interpretation. You guys do.
But we didn't determine that it's actually planned on being grubbed right now, right? That was just standard boilerplate language that was in this.
But it also, I mean, it says, hold on, let me go back.
They didn't show it on the site plan, so I don't know if it was. I mean, when I look at the cross sections, there isn't.
Yeah.
It just shows clean rock. I mean, I would assume they would have put a layer on it that would have said grubbing materials or something to that effect. If they had meant to.
Sometimes you don't show topsoil and grubbing, so. Just, it can be left out, engineers and all that, they're concerned about the structure of it all. But
Materials I see reference in the are topsoil, gravel, riprap. Blinking.
yeah, it's like a quantity sheet here. Detail all that stuff.
What I see is that they're blending the topsoil and the slope at the top of the.
Yeah. But.
I mean, the construction,
Fairly inexpensive.
I mean, you could just say that
This project.
Preferences for grubbing on the top,
Usually down to the.
I mean, it's the thing is that, right, they also were fighting really hard, and this is not your regulation, but they need to they have to meet a no net fill. They can't go higher than it was pre-flood.
I see.
So that may be part of why they have the topsoil here, because the topsoil standard is, I'm trying to get back to it. It's 3 inches of topsoil should be applied to areas currently mowed. 3 inches of topsoil or 6 inches of grubbing material may be applied in other areas disturbed by construction, right? They can't make that bank higher than it was before the flood. Because then it's fill that then does different things to the height of the flood waters.
Well, you'd be increasing the volume, but it wouldn't be the height of the bank, because it's on the slope itself. So the crest would still be relatively the same crest, like it'd match into the topsoil at the top, wherever that came to. Then you just continue down the slope with, it'd usually be more than 6 inches, so it'd be a foot, it'd be a significant amount of volume, but I guess we can see. I mean, they're excavating out. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're excavating out a lot of material.
Yeah, it's on page 19. Approximate quantities, excavation, 362 cubic yards, riprap, 4 feet thick, 779 cubic yards, topsoil, 14 cubic yards, and then seeding. So yeah, page 19 of the full meeting packet. It's sheet 11 of 11 of the EWP project
Oh, approximately.
specs.
Small.
Um,
Alright, so putting in significantly more than they're excavating.
mhm.
But you said pre-flood.
But that's based on pre-flood, that's
Yeah,
why,
this is what's going back
So-
in.
Volume material that was.
We got that from the state has approved that as no net fill based on their stuff, so I think we're hanging our hat on their assessment that said this is where the river used to be, and we can put the riprap here in this location with no net fill. And then add all the other material back in behind it. But I think, just for clarification, the riparian buffer, naturally occurring riparian buffer is a requirement regardless of whether you require the plantings.
Mhm.
So the property owner can't go through and say, well, I'm going to keep this clear because I like the views.
They have to let it revegetate.
They have to let it revegetate back.
Yeah.
But the question of how do we make this go faster back to that state could be more grubbing material, which would help it grow and get settled, or putting in seedlings, or
And any
not.
seedlings don't have to go in that riparian buffer, right? The seedlings,
at
the
the top.
plantings part comes from the landscaping requirement. So those can go anywhere that they want to plant them in the plantable land, which is they're gonna be disturbing soil in to get to the riparian buffer. Right, so they don't have to plant trees in the riparian buffer.
Except that would be your primary concern.
I mean, that would
I
be-
have no desire to make them plant trees for the purpose of planting trees.
Yeah,
You know.
I know.
The only reason to make them plant something is in the buffer is for the health of the river
well,
and to prevent recurrences of the erosion.
yeah, the zoning regs say they do still have to meet the landscaping requirement.
I know, but we already know.
But it could be,
zoning regs
just
have
becomes a
hydrology.
non-conforming,
Yeah,
it just becomes non-conforming.
I think my concern here is that we're talking about coming in as DRB and zoning, saying.
ooh, sorry, that was,
Oh, we're gonna plant trees because that's gonna be good for the river. It's like, well, there's also a stream alteration permit here for the state, a program that's designed in, protecting the riverbanks. There's a grant program here by the NRCS that's designed. I just would hate to get too involved in requiring something for fear of stepping on toes in like some provision or best management practice in one of those other, 5,000 pages of documents.
Particularly if that provision ends up with like, I don't know, planting weeping cherries along the sidewalk, because that would fulfill the
Sure.
requirements. I think in a way you're better off exempting from that requirement because it doesn't actually fulfill the question at hand, which is addressed through other measures.
Exactly.
We hope.
That makes sense to me. 'Cause, yeah, we require them, but then we don't actually tell them what they have to do or where, right? So they could just plant them along front of the building, or, I mean, if there was area, there isn't.
Also
But
the can, but. Does the same argument apply to grubbing?
Oh, to require the grubbing?
Mhm.
rubbing would only be in one place in the area of need. Our point of view, anyway, or at least my point of view.
I think the same argument applies to grubbing. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's in the other programs, with purview and people with qualifications with specialties in this field to decide and,
Well, I know that we don't always put grubbings down, so it's not like something that they're gonna definitely make them do. If that's what you're thinking. I don't, it's kind of, well. I don't know. It'd take a long time, I think, for that to not just look like bare rock, like decades.
So can I just go back to a couple of definitions? Would that be helpful? maybe?
Yes.
So the ground cover within the riparian buffer. The focus is natural woody vegetation from the top of the bank to half of the water setback. To that distance. So just saying you've got to let it grow back to that. I know that the board has had that be the requirement for other riparian buffer discussions where it's like, yes, you can get rid of that invasive. Once it's gone, you've got to let the riparian buffer grow back. You can't mow it, you know, once you've dealt with that invasive, you have to, once the invasive is gone, then let other natural woody vegetation grow. And then sort of similarly in the landscaping requirement of 3203, calculating planting area, that 2-to-1 basis again is the board may consider natural woody vegetation towards the landscaping requirements on a 2-to-1 basis. So really, I think if you're leaning towards letting things regrow, whether it's done through grubbing or some other means, you just natural woody vegetation stuff just comes up on its own. So basically, I think the board can say, look, if you let natural woody vegetation regrow on its own in this area, you can't manicure it, you can't be brush hogging it. And you're gonna let the area, whatever the square footage was that I put in here, regrow as natural woody vegetation. Ta-da, you've met the requirements. And the board can explicitly say in its findings, you know, this is not something that will happen in what would be a normal 2-year term for a zoning permit. It's just you know, you can't actively stop that stuff from growing. You have to let it be. But we're not requiring that you go out and do plantings, so the landowner go out and plant specific trees or shrubs in that area, but they can't actively work against it regrowing either. I think that might be the middle ground and way to go with it.
But your formulation included grubbing, so that's.
No, the whole grubbing thing, that's all just part of the specifications from the USDA.
Yeah.
That's not part of the zoning regulations.
We can't even dictate that they do that.
No, we can't dictate how that's, like, that's, I haven't seen anything in our regs that would say that. No.
Yep. I think it makes sense just to say, us saying that they need to allow it to grow into natural woody vegetation and cannot prevent it. And you say natural woody vegetation, so if it grows back with invasive species, they can rip it out, try something else because it's not natural.
Invasive species, take them.
And I did double check, there's no Conservation Commission minutes posted, so I don't have anything from them. It doesn't, the regs don't say that the board has to hear from them. It says that the Conservation Commission gets the application, they're supposed to review it, they're supposed to get stuff back in a timeline, and we just haven't gotten it.
Of the trees and not require them to do any landscaping.
Yep.
Yes.
I appreciate the language around not preventing. the natural landscape from coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that you cannot actively remove.
Okay, that, I mean, that can be a condition, it's the condition that's in here.
Right. Yep.
Cannot actively prevent or remove. Maybe just within the water setback, the existing.
Is that not already like a condition though?
I mean, it's the riparian buffer specifically is the area that they can't remove without your authority. They could remove other stuff in the water setback, but let me just look at me.
The way the decisions are written is really helpful if there's something important like that to be a condition, even if it's duplicative, because it draws attention to it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'd be changing the condition here, number one. But
Um. It's up to you if you want to have it be the riparian buffer only, or if you want to say, like I had here, the water setback area that isn't covered with impervious surfaces currently. It can be shall be allowed to regrow with natural woody vegetation. Be one option, but you could also just specify riparian setback if you really wanted.
With the water setback of the greater area.
Yep.
Yep.
And gives them, you know, because there's sometimes some parts of the water setback they might want to do stuff with, but water setback area is much of a definitely a bigger area. And
I think that's reasonable, especially considering that the condition is passivity rather than any, it's a no budget passiveness rather than a specific action.
Yep. I agree.
just curious, this has nothing to do with. But I was just wondering if any communication was attempted with the railroad to work within their setbacks.
Not in this instance, but my experience working with the railroad has never been,
So it's
so they,
Yeah.
non-existent,
they're not easy ones to work.
right?
they were provided notices of this hearing. On from my part and for the development review boards required like communication with them separate from the cities or anybody else's, just so that you know that they, even if, you know, there wasn't cooperation on that front, they got the hearing notice of what was going on here at the very least. And we never hear from them. I think we heard from them once when it was talking about building something and they had issues with letting, you know, trees grow up because it would have potentially obstructed views along the working railroad. But I've drafted a potential rewrite of the condition, but I don't know. I know Elvira, sometimes you're really good at this too. So if somebody else has already drafted one, then
No, I think just working with the vocabulary that already existed in the draft, but shifting it away from planting and towards non-interference. Makes sense.
The water setback area shall be allowed to regrow with, I mean, what do you have?
Without interference, you could
Right,
say.
without interference.
So
Woody, but we had, there was a
natural woody vegetation.
natural woody vegetation, that's what I'm looking for,
Water setback areas shall be allowed. You're keeping it much simpler.
Yep.
to regrow.
And if we have to show our work to prove the logic, we can say, you know, to ultimately fulfill the requirement of the 1,086 square feet of planted area. I mean, if we need to justify why.
we have a site plan that shows the water setback area.
So if you look in your Oh, you know what? I don't think I stuck that in there.
This is the one with the FEMA map.
At the beginning, I show approximately, because I mean, there's trees in the way, the riparian buffer distance. It's supposed to be 10 feet. But it shows 9.4, shows page 3 of the staff report. Shows approximate 9.4 feet from the top of. We're estimating the top of the riverbank is in there, and so the water setback is 20 feet. So
Oh.
it's not, the full water setback already goes to impervious surface in a lot of places.
I
Okay,
think also on page 65, there's the.
does that second
I
line,
think it
said
is-
20 feet, these numbers.
Yeah,
I think that's
but-
the water.
That's the line.
Half of that, right?
Oh, you're looking at the big, that 2022 site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of forgot that had.
Shows it coming right up to the parking lot, basically.
Yeah.
So it kind of peels off.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a
I'm good with
change that could be
I just
made,
want to make sure it wasn't bigger than that. Like,
is that the water setback could be shown on the NRCS site plan.
we're gonna require it, it might want to fall. I mean, that hand-drawn thing there,
So-
that suffice.
Let me show you. Let me pull it up on the map, if that's okay, or can I pull it up on the map, on the? Do we have that layer on our GIS? If you want me to, if you're happy with the 2022 plan. Leave it. And this is, approximate water setback. But. That kind of pale layer here. Is supposed to be approximately where the water setback is. So it really, right now, they have vegetation outside of that water setback.
How would it not be approximate water setback?
Right, I mean, it is approximate, right?
Right.
So this is measured. Sort of an aerial water setback setup, but because the water setback is really measured from top of bank, they haven't gone along and done all of these top of banks.
Right.
I
I guess if we're gonna reference the water setback at all in the decision, the plan that shows the
Mhm.
riprap and the work being done, water setback needs to be shown somewhere as non-approximate. And I think that that's easy enough to do, on, one of these plans. I mean, the main, whichever one makes sense. Main plan view here.
okay, so that's two.
Seems like it would be the one on page 10 of 85. Where. You
Sure.
would want to see.
Yeah, that one right here.
Okay, so the OHW here is the ordinary high water line.
Yep.
That's not necessarily the top of the bank.
No.
Because we actually define top of bank in the regulations. But it's kind of
Top of
hard.
bank is gonna be the riprap in this case.
Yeah.
The riprap.
Yeah, kind of the
So-
interface between the two there.
So, I mean. Yeah, I mean, here you're gonna now have top of bank, so then it's
We will-
20 feet back from there is the water setback. And the first 10 feet is the riparian buffer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of solid, there's like two shapes there. I think this lower shape is like the flat portion of the stone.
Yeah.
So it'd actually be the closer line to the river.
Yeah, this is they have this as like tie back for tying it in
Yeah, that'd be the end of the stone, but the actual shoulder break would happen
here.
down there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that would be where
That's
you'd
top
start
of
from.
bank.
It's going to be.
It's going to be. Right now, top of bank is under the building.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving
Oh.
it back, actually.
Well, yeah, that's an even more better reason to show the setback because,
Yeah, new proposed, yeah, water setback.
Okay, so if you want something that shows the setback, that's to be like filed with me prior to permit issuance or?
Or is it possible to refer to an area that's already defined, for
Right, I mean, this
example,
has scale on it.
area disturbed? But, well, that's some of that's in the water, which you can't.
I'm not, I don't care. I mean, I think it's a document that for the project is that has to be, has to show it specifically. You can't just say that like, oh, here's a scale bar 20 feet from their plan that we have. It's like, it's their determination as to where that is.
I mean, you could say, I mean, the part that's gonna be disturbed, that's where they're cutting down trees.
Right, so couldn't you refer to the mapped area to be disturbed, must not be disturbed? After it's disturbed?
If there's a complaint that they went and they cleared stuff at the top of the bank, the inspector needs a piece of paper to go out there and say, oh, the setback line intersects the building like right here, and I'm standing right here. Like this is an issue, or the trees to here, and we're good.
I guess my concern there would be that line is proposed and when you're placing 4-foot stones, be off by 4 feet, or around there, It's just any line we put on there would have to be approximate to begin with. And I think language, is there already a restriction on clearing within the?
Yeah, but within the first 10 feet, within the riparian buffer,
Okay,
from
so
the
we'd
top
be
of
trying to
bank, so.
extend it then to 20. I feel like that's just, if there's already the 10-foot requirement, maybe just leave it at that, and then there's no ambiguity about it. Well, I mean, there would
Because
be debate,
riparian
but-
buffer is already defined,
Mhm.
so we don't need it to be defined specific to this.
I don't
Site.
think you need to. I think if you say, combine the, you could say, if you really wanted to, you could say that the greater of the area to be disturbed. I mean, you can really just say within the 10-foot riparian buffer, so.
Yeah,
Also, it's
Right?
worth noting out that area of disturbance includes any temporary disturbance, vehicles tracking, all that stuff, disturbance from the excavation. So then you're expanding the area beyond just what we're looking at there.
Oh, yeah, okay, 10-foot, 20 feet. I agree with the 10-foot, but where is the 10-foot?
well,
it's already in
we
there,
don't need
so,
to
like-
define it at all. If we simply refer to riparian buffer, anybody who comes to do a site inspection would use the same guidance that they would use for determining where the riparian buffer lies on any property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
it's
is not necessarily mapped.
and it's not gonna be based on this plan, it's gonna be on the final constructed, where is the top of bank? Right? Because as Joe said, it may shift some. So the area that can't be disturbed later is still the riparian buffer. Those first 10 feet from the top of bank. So they have to allow the riparian buffer to regrow with natural woody vegetation. I mean, and you can say just that if you want, and that simplifies it versus trying to get into the number of square feet. The riparian buffer.
Yep.
After completion of this project, the riparian buffer zone must be allowed to regrow with natural woody vegetation. And you can say, because part of that riparian buffer is technically where the building is, the riparian buffer zone that is not, you know, currently covered with impervious surfaces, if you want, or whatever, but but you can say that, you know, because you're not trying to make them lose their parking lot. Either way, you can keep it, just say, some back and forth here. You don't like
Well,
that,
you guys
do
know you guys all know my background or what.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the
So
survey wants it to be
maybe
example.
I'll concede, but
That's why I
this-
said-
The enforcement's gonna be on me unless somebody's
Well,
appealing.
we're talking
whether or
about
not I-
25 years of regrowth and
Oh, I mean, I know.
I don't know. We've talked about a couple things. Like one, this discrepancy about like where is the top of bank, the proposed top of bank. We've got a a line in the GIS that is the approximate line that is the existing buffer. We've got this 10-foot. We've got the existing improvements. Like it seems like it would be a pretty small lift to just delineate an area on the site plan to say like the revegetation that we're talking about applies to this here.
Except as Joe points out, we don't know exactly what it will look like once the riprap comes in.
It would be an arbitrary area that we just kind of say you can't do anything here. That's what we would have to do.
Yeah, I mean, on this image, that area that's labeled as the blended back to existing top of bank, that's about 7 feet. So that's about 3 feet short of the fully, nope, not the blue line, the flat part at the top next to the building,
Oh, okay, sorry.
The time back area.
This
the
one.
tieback area.
Yep.
That area right there is about 7 feet thick. And your riparian buffer is 10 feet. So it's about 3 feet
Right.
farther than that. So it's,
Farther inland, right into the building.
yep, it'll go, well, technically, yes, it would go into the building, but
Yeah.
we will let them not have to build things on the roof, plant trees on the roof.
Yeah.
But it would fill in a couple of the things, but that gives you an idea of when we're talking about the area that's the naturally vegetated, that's what we're talking. We're not talking about a massive area of land. It's just a little bit bigger than what you see there.
Does that mean they couldn't clear any vegetation like up against their building?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
We kind of have to do that.
I mean, under the riparian buffer standards, correct. Unless you, I mean, that's,
Someone would have to notice, I guess. You're just trimming some branches back.
I mean, you're still gonna have water here, right? You're still gonna have water coming up, and the blue is the ordinary high water. There's still gonna be flood events. They're gonna,
It's completely submerged. this bank.
yeah, especially in this area, probably. But you now have the riprap there to keep it from eroding underneath and going away.
And something will grow in that sloped part.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's gotta be whatever stuff's growing out between the rocks that, unless they're really packed in tight. Which I guess they probably are gonna be packed in pretty tight.
Well, with 4-foot stones, you get huge voids.
Oh.
Be huge areas that floods will deposit sediment in there and stuff will grow. for
But they
sure.
won't move, so.
Yeah,
So,
assuming it.
yeah, so, yeah, I mean, you'll get stuff, there's gonna be more trees going down towards the river over time.
I'm inclined to not require anything that's like outside of typical riparian protections. Just because one, I think it'd be hard to enforce. Also, like if we do something specific for this one little site, like you said, like 25 years from now, that's gonna get forgotten. No one's gonna remember. No one's gonna look into it if someone's cutting trees from around the building, you know what I mean? Like,
It is a non-conforming building anyway.
Mm-hmm.
and my concerns are purely stability of the slope, vegetation regrowth and roots and things like that all help in that regard. And they're not gonna be clearing that stone slope anyway. No one's gonna do that unless they love looking at bare rock. be a lot of effort. So I'm not inclined to require them anything specific. Just like you said, let the other permits and requirements kind of cover what they can and can't do with vegetation there once the stone's in.
But you don't want the riparian buffer shall be let to grow.
Isn't that already though gonna be a requirement of their permits? So I just don't want to be redundant with our requirements.
So, I mean, we can just make the findings can be because of the riparian buffer restrictions, the riparian buffer shall be allowed to regrow, without disturbance. And basically, we just reiterate that this is a standard that applies now. That's why it's before the board. And that you're not going to require explicit replanting of that riparian buffer, but they have to let it regrow to the natural woody vegetated state.
We were here before saying it would make sense to duplicate, to have this duplicate mention of what is already.
Yeah, but instead of it being a condition, it can be laid out in the findings of fact and then in the board's conclusion saying that, the riparian buffer standard on its own requires that this area be allowed to regrow with natural woody vegetation. And given the, what the project is, you're not requiring that they explicitly plant anything. And then when you get to the landscaping standards, that's when you just say, hey, because you're already being required to regrow, let the riparian buffer area regrow. We're not going to require you plant more trees to meet that total landscaping state standard, but you have to let that regrow in natural woody vegetation.
A motion would end at in supporting the supplemental materials period.
I think so. Yeah. And it's just that I make the explicit findings. I mean, you could do that and say motion to approve removal approximately. I would say yeah, I think you do that. And it's a reworking of the findings of fact in the landscaping.
Some of the concerned citizens, for what we've done here, they see something in there about regrowth and riparian zone,
Okay, so
stuff like that.
Looping back.
That would be-
I agree.
Sure.
From like a
Yeah.
communication perspective, and it's also, it raises awareness of the kind of levels of redundancies across the different
So we're
regs.
putting it back in.
It's
as a
like,
condition of
we're
approval.
expecting
Yeah.
having to do elsewhere.
As a finding
Just
of
as long as
fact,
that's
okay.
in,
Oh, as long as it's in the findings of fact, or do you, yeah,
when they read it, they're gonna read that.
When they read the
too, right, so,
when they read the whole decision or when they just read, because a lot of people just read the conclusion.
then we can say you didn't read the whole thing.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I mean, the zoning administrator has to read the whole thing.
The zoning administrator has to write this.
Future zoning administrators are supposed to read the decision if this comes up.
But I don't like the idea of putting a condition here that's already a condition.
Mhm.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
I guess, I mean, to make it simpler, I would say that you make the area to be to allow to be revegetated. Within 10 feet of the top of bank is the area we're talking about, and we get rid of the rest of it. It's just
Right, the riparian buffer is that area.
Simpler.
So I think are you saying are you saying in the findings of fact, or are you saying as a part of the condition of?
as part of the condition.
Also back on condition.
How about motion to approve all that through supporting supplemental materials with the understanding that the natural, the
Riparian-
allowed revegetation of the riparian buffer shall satisfy the section 203 landscaping standards. And then you've hit both of the points that the board needed to make a decision.
There we go. That does sound simpler.
There we go.
It only took us an hour and 15.
Say, don't do anything.
Be the shepherd of the motion.
I mean, I'm happy to. It's kind of far away from the language I need physically.
Did you have to ignore like all of my prior notes? Yeah.
Oh, you got
Uh,
of that too, okay.
Right, so it's, ignore all of that. So it's read to there and then jump to that circle, if you can read my lawyerly scribble.
All right.
Well, with lots of assists. We got there, I think.
All right. I'm gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve removal of approximately 22 trees from within the water setback area of 114 River Street as part of a riverbank stabilization project as presented in application Z 2026-0011 and supporting and supplemental materials with the understanding that the allowed revegetation of the riparian buffer shall satisfy section 3203 of the landscaping standards.
Motion by Joe, second by Alex. We'll move into a roll call vote unless there's any discussion. Seeing none. Catherine, how do you vote? Kevin,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Avira,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Rob, the chair votes yes. That is 6-0. Thank you all.
And Rob, this decision will be on a bit of a fast track. I will try and get it to you as soon as possible.
Sounds good. I'm going on vacation next week, so
You said you're on vacation next week?
Yep.
Okay.
But I am oh yeah, probably gonna have to get me Thursday afternoon. But we also have a vice chair, so in case you do not
You can sign on his behalf as having been vice chair. I've done that before. We've had that happen when someone's out of the country or unavailable.
This group didn't even know the definition and didn't even know the origins of riprap.
learned so much. Learned so
Look it up.
much. Okay, we do have some minutes to approve here from the last meeting on the 2nd, which I believe was just the approval of our rules, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly. Anyone have any revisions to the minutes?
No revisions, but a motion. Accept.
All right, motion by Kevin, second.
Second that.
Alrighty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. And
Thank you, Mike.
any applications for April 6th?
No, there's no applications for April 6th. So the next potential meeting, unless for some reason you want to meet on April 6th, would be April 20th. And a reminder that there's an extra Monday in March. So that's a lot of weeks away.
And
Or-
Meredith, I'm out of town April 20th.
Okay.
That's the kids' April break,
Oh.
just FYI.
Nice.
Yep.
Which, April 20th?
April 20th.
Yeah, the school break is the 20th to the 24th.
Yep.
I also do not have any daycare, but it doesn't look like we're going anywhere.
Hmm?
Doesn't look like we're going anywhere.
All right.
Although I
Okay.
don't have.
Been
Joel?
there, done that.
Go ahead, Meredith.
Because not everybody was here when I said this before the meeting started. Please, if you can, go visit the planning department's updated webpage, specifically the permits option in the left-hand column on the planning department's webpage.
Okay.
There have been a lot of updates, a lot of things that we hope will make it easier for people to apply for permits, get information about their property. And we're gonna work on more, so we already have a couple of how-tos on how to fill out applications or how to create your own site plan. So keep an eye on that, that keeps updating. And then we'll keep trying to improve things and make it easier for everybody to go through the process.
Hey, thanks.
I motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
All right.
You know why? of our mic.